Also joining us this hour, Jared Bernstein, of course, former chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors for President Biden. It's good to see you this afternoon. I want to pick up really where we left off with Phil there. The importance of the independence here, right? That the Fed remain independent. And I think when this comes up a lot in conversation, people will automatically, maybe not automatically, but often will point to Turkey and say, this is a prime example of why it's important that the Fed remain independent. Do you think that's an accurate storyline, if you will, to look at in terms of stressing what it means to have an independent central bank here?
I very much do. I think the central bank independence starts with the committee that sets interest rates, and the chair of that committee, of course, Jerome Powell, and he has very jealously guarded that independence, and that is a tremendous favor for the American economy. History is absolutely littered with economies that have been brought to their knees when the central bank is essentially taken over by the administrative branch, exactly what President Trump is talking about. And the results tend to be highly inflationary. We already have the tip of the spear of that problem with tariffs boosting inflation rates, which is, by the way, is exactly what Powell and the Fed are concerned about. In our consumer price index yesterday, we saw some early evidence of that. And my expectation is that's going to continue to be a problem.
So to that point, you sort of answered this question, but I think it's important to address it head on. The president has said repeatedly he wants rates to come down. Given what we are seeing in terms of the data, do you see a case for that in this moment?
Well, there's rates coming down, and there's rates coming down 3 percentage points is what he's talking about. I think there's a credible case for a rate reduction in the next Fed meeting or the one after that, July or September, and that would be a quarter point, and that's a different kind of decision than what the president is arguing for. There's a set of rules that central bankers follow based on the data that suggest what the federal funds rate should be. And that rule tells you right now that it should probably be somewhere in the 4 to 5% range. If you tweak it a little bit, maybe you can get to 3.75, something like that. But based on where the interest rate be, given the uncertainty about where inflation is headed, is in that range, in the range that we're currently in with a cut or two in the next month or two. If you took the rate down to 1%, not only would you be deeply compromising the Fed independence, but you'd start to be screwing around. You'd start to be really potentially altering the inflation anchor. That is the expectation that the Fed is taking the inflation problem seriously, and that gives you all kinds of deep problems that last for a long time.
We heard from Senator Kennedy of Louisiana earlier today telling CNN that the market would crash, in his view, if for some reason the president were to fire Jerome Powell. A White House official is saying, look, he's just toying with the idea. The president himself saying, oh, it's not really going to happen. But do you agree with Senator Kennedy and frankly, what we've heard from a number of other folks about just how widespread the impact could be should Jerome Powell be forced out or fired?
I mean, I think if you look at today, the market actually took a dive when Trump said he would fire Powell, and then it recovered very quickly when he said he wouldn't. I think what the market does or doesn't do is really hard to know. I mean, there's probably some of this that's already priced into the market. They know that Trump really wants to put someone who he can influence in the Fed chair. So whether that happens next May or whether that happens sooner, that's not immaterial. I don't want to overstate my case. But what the market does is actually secondary to what I was just talking about. If global markets, if investors in this country and around the world believe that the independence of the Fed is now deeply compromised by the Trump administration because they want low interest rates to try to finance this huge deficit that they've just taken on in a climate where tariffs are putting upward pressure on inflation, that's going to really threaten the idea, we call it anchored inflationary expectations. It's a very confusing way of saying the idea that the Fed will do what it takes to keep inflation in control. That is a powerful force that by itself, in the market psychology, keeps inflation within a pretty narrow band usually. And to undermine that, That's not just a week-long problem or a month-long problem or a market dips today and goes up tomorrow. That's a year, many years-long problem.
Yeah. Chair Bernstein, great to have you with us. Appreciate your perspective. Thank you.